Everyone, this is Bill Coleman, and happy to have folks with us today. I really appreciate that. And we've got an interesting agenda today, which I can't seem to find on my computer, but I know what it is. And so we're really going to hear about the role of community in digital equity initiatives from really two different points of view. One is from Katie Heaton, who's really been the leader of the Fairmont City team and is a librarian in that system, doing a great job. And then following up with Durot from the Waukegan community, talking about their really intensive look at how they're working with the ACP program down to some pretty significant levels of detailed strategy that I think we can really appreciate. And then after that, we're going to go to a round robin kind of community reports to see what's happening, and then follow up with a bit of my presentation around the next steps in the ICC program, or the planning that will take place in May and June to close out the program. And so thanks for joining again, and welcome, Katie. Thanks for joining today.
Well, thanks for having me, Bill. I appreciate it. So you want me to go ahead and go?
Yeah, go for it.
Go for it. So my name is Katie Heaton, and I'm the Assistant Director of the Mississippi Valley Library District. We own libraries in Collinsville, Illinois, and Fairmont City, Illinois. We started working with that community, Fairmont City, in 2000, opened our library there in 2008. And I have been with this community since 2000, working with them. So we've been through a lot of ups and downs with this community, and sometimes thinking outside the box of the role of a librarian. But if a true librarian looks at the resource levels of any community and sees that they are lacking resources, you definitely have a reason to step up. And that's sort of like what we did here in Fairmont City. Most people think about libraries and like free Wi-Fi inside. We actually have free Wi-Fi inside and outside. You can check out hotspots. Not every library does this, but we happen to do it here. You can also do like tech classes. So we do offer tech classes. I'm actually offering free computer classes right now every Tuesday and Thursday in the evening. And believe it or not, people are not coming. So sometimes you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So anyway, I'm not going to stop trying though to keep working with them on that. One of my newest things I'm doing inside my library though is an internet option bulletin board, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we talk about the role of the library in Fairmont City. So for us, when we came into this community and started working with them, we felt like they were left behind in time, almost like the 1950s. We were talking about DVDs and working towards Blu-rays, Collinsville Library, and my whole community down here in Fairmont City was still on VHS. And so it was very typical for this community to be about at least 10 years behind in technology. Computers were not a thing. And so we had to really start from scratch down here. We are one of the library systems that actually uses the Project Next Generation grant. So that's one of the things that we started doing first to help equalize the opportunities for youth in this community. So we wrote a grant every year. We were lucky enough to start getting them. And that has really helped us with technology as well, because some people have said, why would the Collinsville Library go to Fairmont City? So if you don't know anything about Fairmont City, it was a low income, unserved community. And so then, our response was, well, we didn't go there for the money. We went there for the people. And that is really why we went to Fairmont City. And our library district was helping us to support two branches, one on the main street in Collinsville and one in an at-risk in need community, which we chose Fairmont City. We had a couple places we were looking at, but we actually chose Fairmont City, and then we started working with the people that were here. It's very important as a library, though, and libraries are usually well known for this, to put their ear to the sidewalk and listen to that heartbeat of the community and figure out what their needs are, especially if you're going to be bringing knowledge to the community. Doesn't really matter what knowledge is. Sometimes we think outside the box as a librarian, but any question deserves a good answer. And if they have a lack of resources, internet being one of those, well, then maybe you got to jump on that bandwagon, which is sort of like what we did. Digital divide is real in the state of Illinois, and we did feel it here very high in Fairmont City, and we've been fighting for that right ever since that time. You talk about left behind communities, left behind, rural areas as well, and we're still feeling that as we have these conversations nowadays with Bill and his whole group. as we fight for the right for Illinois to be connected across the state. It is definitely a fight. I recently had a conversation with a representative from Whisper. Bill knows about this one. And they sent out an email to anybody and everybody in the village of Fairmont City that had an email posted, and they included myself and my board of directors on their email. And they pretty much said, you know, Whisper's been providing internet service in Fairmont City for 20 years, and we're going to be upgrading our systems with a $500,000 upgrade, and we're going to have better services, and we're wonderful, we're the best in the nation, and if you have any questions, call me. Well, I called him. So his name was Monty, and the very first time I introduced myself, he was like, I just want to say you need to get your facts straight. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is going to be an interesting conversation. He says, we've been providing internet to this community for 20 years, and yet you guys report in the news that you don't have internet service. And I said, well, actually, what we've been saying is affordable, reliable internet service. So we had a long talk. And at the end, I think, you know, he was a little bit more enlightened, because I could tell from his conversation that he really didn't know what he was talking about. And I asked a question, so how long have you been working for Whisper? And he had to tell me 6 months. And he's like, but I've been talking to the owner. I'm like, well, I'm glad you've been talking to the owner. Let me just tell you what it's like in my neck of the woods. So we had this lovely conversation. I told him I was working on my internet option board. I told him I would love to have information from Whisper about current packages, which is when he told me that they're going to be lowering their prices. And I'm like, interesting. We've been fighting for, you know, reliable, affordable internet in Fairmont City for years now. And now all of a sudden we've got Spectrum coming in this month, actually. And now Whisper wants to give us better prices. Well, it wasn't that they lowered their prices, they upped their speeds. So their 10/2 package, which was $65 a month. Yes, you heard me correctly. Speeds of 10/2 for $65 a month. Remember, that's part of that affordable internet. It's now going to be a 25/4 for $65 a month. And then he wanted to enlighten me with the ACP program, which used to be the EBB program. Important to definitely educate your community on their options, which is why I started this internet option board, is for trying to educate our community through the library resources on the best choices for themselves. And I told him, yes, I was familiar with the ACP program. And he gave me his example of Whisper's 25/4 plan for $65 a month. ACP, sign up for low income families. You can have that plan for $30 a month, $35 a month. And I'm like, well, that's great, Monty, but Charter Spectrum's coming in and they have the Spectrum Assist for these same low income families. And they have a plan for them for $17.99 a month. And he goes, yes, but what's the speeds? I'm like, no, understand, Whisper is at 25. And I'm like, well, Spectrum speed is 30. It's 30 for $17.99. Very important as a librarian to make sure you get the information out to the community so that they can no longer be taking advantage of Whisper or someone like Whisper who knew they had the whole market and was just charging them through the roof. A 25/4, by the way, used to be $105 a month. I haven't actually heard if they're going to be lowering the prices of the people who currently live here who was paying $105 for the 25/4 plan. That's probably another good conversation that I would probably be having with Monty, supposed to be coming in and meeting me. And so then I look forward to those conversations. But getting back to the roles of libraries, you know, you're talking about, you know, how can a library make a difference in a community? Well, definitely in Fairmont City, when you have a community that's behind in technology, somebody needs to be the voice. Anybody can be the voice. It just so happened that voice ended up being me. I didn't shy away from the challenge, and I thought the community deserved better than what they were getting. And I could definitely see the digital divide, and I could definitely see what Whisper was doing to the community. They made it unaffordable for most. And so a lot of my families would end up going with just their handheld devices, their phones. So we talked about the fact that a lot of my families actually use their phone, which, by the way, I would like to make this argument to somebody that the ACP program cannot be used on the phone plans from what my families are telling me. If you have a pay-as-you-go plan, you can use the ACP. But if my families have figured out how to put enough money into their phone plans, and they have no other resources, they don't have Wi-Fi, they don't have computers, they have nothing else at their house, they've figured out how to live with just their phone plans. I think if they qualify for free lunches at school, they need to get $30 off that phone plan. So that's their connectivity. So that's going to be an argument I'd love to have in the future with the right person, see if we can get a change on that. Just because they figured out how to pay for something doesn't mean they shouldn't qualify from assistance. just my point. But they're saying that if you can afford to pay for a phone, you can afford to pay $30 a month, and don't deserve that assistance. So that would be a good conversation to have. But then, you know, if the only people who have this is mom and dad, then when all of my children had to go home with COVID-19 and had to have e-learning days, which by the way, now replaces snow days. Snow days are now a thing in the past. The school has now figured out how to do e-learning days. My kids who were surviving off of mom and dad having this, and might be 2, 3, 4, 5 kids in the family, mom and dad go to work and only one parent's at home, you can quickly see how these kids were unable to attend school. And so then we've been working very diligently. So it took myself as a librarian to stand on that soapbox alongside of the mayor of Fairmont City, who also felt the same needs of the community, and people were telling him, hey, I'm moving out, I just don't have any services. Kind of really, you know, holds the community back as part of that problem. And so then we also partnered up with the superintendent of Collins Unit 10, which is our school district, by the way. We don't have any schools in Fairmont City, all the kids are class. And we just started having those serious conversations on how can we change the issues that were happening in Fairmont City. Let's do that collaboration, the school district, the library district, and the village of Fairmont City, that we were able to leverage some really good conversations, and eventually got our franchise agreement with Charter Spectrum. So with Charter Spectrum coming in, they laid fiber down our main roads. We're going with coax in the household. So you'll have coax from households to the main line. And pretty soon here, they're really close to opening up all those addresses. And our families will now have a new option and more competition for internet and broadband in the village of Fairmont City. Now, there was that little part of me that also wanted to make a point about fiber, generally speaking about fiber. I think Governor Pritzker, with his millions and millions of dollars going against this Connect Illinois grants and stuff, is a great move forward. But I don't think he ever thought that the internet service providers would and could say no, but they do. And so then that is one of the things that happened to us, and we really just had to be vocal about that. But I think if the state of Illinois is going to offer these kind of programs, they really need to have internet service providers that are a yes and a yes to all. And if we can't get there, then it makes you wonder, you know, what are we doing? So we need to seriously look at that situation, because my families will tell you hands down that broadband internet connection is just as important as water and electricity. And that should be something that should be afforded for all. And myself as a librarian who has seen the struggles of a community that fought for this all these years, and we'll shortly have Spectrum here. I'm happy to see that finally happening. But moving forward with technology, I would hope that history would not repeat itself, but fingers crossed on that. So in a nutshell, that's sort of like my story. So if anybody has any questions for me, I'd be happy to take those. Bill, did I miss anything you wanted to touch on?
Well, I guess I'd ask you to give advice to people who may, you know, most libraries are right at the forefront of this kind of activity. Some communities have struggled to get their libraries fully engaged in their community broadband planning programs, maybe come outside the library doors. Any advice for the communities in trying to get the library to the table?
Yeah, I would definitely say that if you don't have an engaging librarian, you probably need to go straight to the board of directors and have those conversations and say, hey, is there anything you can do to help change the internet services in our community? Actually, after we got our franchise agreement with Charter Spectrum, Washington Park, which is a municipality right behind us, it was cute at the same time. I heard they had a quote, they wish they had a library like they had in Fairmont City. And I thought to myself, oh, that's too funny. So what is interesting about that particular story with Washington Park, and this is going to come full circle, and you'll see where I'm going with this, is that I was in close partnership with their librarian in Washington Park. They had a library, and the city officials chose to defund it and close it. Isn't that an interesting story? Now that mayor has come and gone, and there's a new mayor who says, I wish I had a library like Fairmont City. And so then these conversations that are happening. Well, at the same time, we signed our franchise agreement, and Washington Park felt left out, another community that was left out. You know, there was conversations that were had with the new mayor, our mayor in Fairmont City, and Charter Spectrum, and we ended up bringing not one, but both of these communities up with this project. And we're having conversations with getting their public library back in full swing. So funny how that comes around, goes around kind of thing. But that was a very serious conversation about the importance of libraries in a community and the importance of the voice of the library in a community. Where Washington Park noticed the role that we played in getting internet here for Fairmont City and wished they had a library and doing the same thing there. But it wasn't just me, it was the city officials and the school district and all of our voices together. It's just that, you know, I was having all those serious conversations and they knew me and kind of said that. So yeah, I would say that for sure. You definitely have to have a librarian that's forward thinking in the sense of someone has a question, I need to help them find an answer. And it shouldn't matter what the question is.
How do you, I know that your community is many Hispanic non-English speakers. What's your strategy for equal access to information on that account?
Well, when we first came into Fairmont City, I had a pretty simple rule that I was talking to my boss and board about. How can you service a community that's different from you? I didn't see that as a barrier, but I did see it as a little bit of a challenge, but I didn't think it was something that we couldn't handle. So what I told them was we need to commit to the community, you need to hire from the community, and you need to speak the language of the community. And so then with that philosophy, we came in and started servicing Fairmont City. So we shouldn't shy away from those three challenges. They are nothing but challenges. They are definitely not a closed door. You just need to get in there and get the job done. And, you know, funny enough, the bank at Everswell walked in the door one day and said, how can the library be so successful in Fairmont City? I told them my philosophy of when I opened the doors here in Fairmont City at the library, they followed that same thing. And now I share my building, which they evolved into Busey Bank. I now share my building with them, and we have a bank library building. We both hire from the community and speak the language of the community. And we're well known in about 2-hour radius around my library about people who would come in for Hispanic services. So I think that format works very well. And there's another, the bank was talking about replicating that at a Bosnian community over in St. Louis as well. So once you get past that first step, my building's bilingual, my signs are bilingual, my staff is bilingual, and you just make sure you offer things in English and Spanish and have those conversations in English and Spanish, and you can move everybody forward with that.
Good. And then here's a question from Grace Klukas from Peoria Economic Development, and want to know about, you know, how can communities help libraries on these digital equity issues?
I would say support for programming, support for grants. If you know about grants that can help people with technology. Like I said, we did the Project Next Generation grant, and helps me. I'm servicing a low income area, so I could really use the money to buy the technologies to keep my staff current and the library itself current, and therefore keep the community current. So that's definitely one way that other people can help libraries. So if you can volunteer your technology, you have a group that's tech savvy, do like a computer repair day for the library and offer to pay for some parts. I mean, those are definitely ways that you guys can make a difference in your communities. Offer to teach classes, you know, it's those kind of things. If the library does a tech giveaway day, volunteer and be a tech person. If you're bilingual, offer to be the bilingual person and get yourself tech savvy too on all the questions they might be asking. There's lots of ways that you can partner with the library and say, how can I help you help the community with technology or broadband or things along those lines. We've come a long way, but we've been working on this problem since we first identified this community in 2000. The library opened in 2008, and I had one T1 line at 1.5 mega service. It wasn't until I partnered with the bank that we had deep pockets enough that we could get Charter Spectrum in my building, and my building was the first building in Fairmont City to have fiber. And then here we are later, 2022, and we're finally getting Charter Spectrum to come into all residents, all businesses, with no closed doors anymore. So it takes a little while to keep on it, but you just got to keep on.
Okay. And I know you were expressing a little frustration about offering classes and not enough attendees. And that's certainly a challenge, especially for the audience that needs the classes the most, to say, oh, a week from Thursday, I'm going to go spend an hour at the library is probably difficult for many moms or families or to figure that out. Do you have any kind of like family activities or around technology, or is it geared at different demographic groups?
It's completely wide open so that it didn't appear to have any barriers for anybody. It's being handled by one of my bilingual speakers, so they could have taken care of English or Spanish, all age levels. Anybody was included in the computer classes. And it boggles your mind sometimes when you offer things and no one's taking you up. We do have a penny severance literacy grant that I'm working with as well. And part of that is, teaching technologies and teaching what you can do with the libraries. And actually, during COVID-19, the one success I can say is that we've been doing telephone training sessions where we literally call our patrons or sign up for our literacy, and we're teaching them technology through about a 15-minute phone call, because we get away with they'll let us get away with just that much. And we're like, if I can get 15 minutes of your time and teach you one little thing at the library, then I'll just check one more thing off my box, and maybe that little seed of growth, and you'll come in and ask me some more questions about that. So that's sort of like the trick that we're using right now to get our foot in the door for some of these families.
How important are these regional library organizations to really get find the resources and do the planning for these bigger grants? So is it library by library, or is it these regional systems that take the lead on that?
I'm going to say it's a little bit of both. Obviously we look for grants on our own. We apply for grants on our own. And I would be part of the Illinois Heartland Library System. And so that sometimes they will alert us to grants as well. And sometimes, depending on what the grant is, sometimes there's been collaboration where multiple libraries have gone together to do a bigger level of a grant. But most of the time for us, most of the success that we've done with grants has been on our own.
Okay. And then back to the bilingual abilities there. Do you say, okay, these classes are going to be in Spanish, and then those are 100% in Spanish, or is it just you have people that don't speak Spanish and don't speak English together, and just do it simultaneous, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we're 80% Hispanic and multiple levels of bilingualism. And so then we try to do as much as possible in both languages when we do a program. We have had some programs where we've really targeted Spanish speakers and their low-level English speakers, and we do it full Spanish. That's why it's really good to have the bilingual workers that I have at my front desk so that they can quickly switch between both languages. And so, it's good just to have the signage in both languages so everyone feels comfortable. And most of the time we're doing bilingual programming as well. They're talking both languages, answering both questions, presenting things in both languages. And that's probably the best way, because you don't want to limit who's going to walk through that door. You just want to invite everybody and then go with whatever you get.
Oh, great. Well, librarians are my best friends in digital equity efforts. People say, oh, we need a community technology center. And I said, well, you've got one, right? It's the library, and make sure that's open. It's got lots of equipment and lots of bandwidth and lots of activity.
Right.
And as you mentioned, that libraries sometimes struggle for funding, and people say, well, we won't need libraries in the future because there won't be books, but that's proven to be a total misconception of
Right.
where we're heading. So.
Well, libraries are a hub for gaining knowledge. When somebody wants to rise up and do better, that's what the libraries were supposed to be. And to say that, we're connected to all this information, but we're also connected to resources. We've got the phone numbers and sometimes the exact person you need to talk to. And I just we were talking a little bit about my internet option board. So I literally started this bulletin board in my library that talks about all the ways you can get internet, and kind of, if we can, put up price comparisons. Do you have your phone plan? Can you use a hotspot? Do you know about PCs for people? Do you know the income level to get a new computer or a hotspot through them? Do you know about the affordable connectivity plan? Do you know about the prices from Whisper? Do you know about the prices from Spectrum? We're putting up all these options up on my internet option board so that we can have those in-depth conversations with anybody who stops in and looks at the board, and then I have flyers ready for them to take home, and so that they can make the best decision for them. So, when you're talking about the role of a library, you just get down to the nitty-gritty dirty of it. You're providing knowledge. And then,
Good.
Yes, you really have to dig into what is the question and get the answer.
Good. Well, and Shabika and Adrienne have been working on that charters pricing and what plans they want. So they'll probably after this meeting, you'll get an email with a draft of that in your email box, and let us know what you think of that, and then we'll share that with others.
Definitely.
Good. Katie, thank you so much for participating today. It was really interesting. You know, you're a great fighter for your community. I know not only on technology, but on everything. So I love that library is a place to gain knowledge as a framework that allows a lot of different activities beyond checking out a book. So thanks
for having me again.
Okay.
Nice talking to you.
Yeah, enjoy your next meeting.
My next meeting, which starts in 2 minutes. All right, have a great day.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Katie.
And here's so we our next speaker is Ann Durot, who's from Waukegan and has been a driving force on their Waukegan broadband task force. It's always when there's an update, it's always, well, Ann's been doing this or Ann's been doing that. So Ann, thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it. How's your internet now?
Well, Elizabeth Ramirez has joined me as well. She is our Connect Waukegan Digital Navigator, our first hire, very exciting. And Rebecca Pedraza was on the call earlier. I'm not sure if she's still on or not. She has been our volunteer boots on the ground for Connect Waukegan. Our internet's okay because now we're in the middle of the room. So yeah, downtown Waukegan, and we don't have reliable internet, no matter how much we pay for it. So, but I can't imagine what Katie goes through, because that would really be hard with 10 down. So ACP process. I'm assuming everyone on the call understands Affordable Connectivity Program. There are two options. You can connect, you can become eligible on your own. Typically that is through income, 200% of the poverty level or lower, or you are a participant in a variety of federal programs. The alternative is that you can qualify through a dependent. Rebecca, who I see is on the call now, she and I have been working through this process using both avenues. The population that we serve here in Waukegan, the very first level of identification, which is your social security number, by and large, our residents that we serve do not have that social security number. So what USAC has explained to us is because Lifeline was built, or the affordable connectivity is built on the Lifeline platform, if you don't have a social security number and you are working to qualify on your own, your application will automatically be kicked out. So the process kind of has these hurdles that present themselves at various pathways during the process. So it's really important to understand which pathway your enrollee is going to take, and then understand the documents that they will need to be able to validate their existence and therefore their eligibility for the program. When you have a situation, so that's the first thing. Social security numbers are really important. When you don't have social security numbers, understand that there's going to be a hiccup. Part of that hiccup will require an affidavit of life. So the applicant will need to get a notarized statement that verifies they are in fact alive. So it really helps if you're going to be doing enrollment events that you may be serving populations who may not have social securities numbers, that you possibly get a notary available to be able to do that. It'll automatically kick out, you'll get the error message, and then you'll be able to upload the next document. Alternatively, you can qualify through your dependent. We have actually had luck now qualifying a resident who She herself didn't have a social security number, nor did her dependent, but we were actually able to get her all the way through the process and get her application approved. The trick that you get into with this sort of thing is that you need to be able to upload documents. Upload documents on a computer, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Upload on a phone, sometimes it'll work better, sometimes it doesn't. So it really is device dependent and kind of on any given day. Rebecca, I know if you can talk while you're in the car, Rebecca has dealt with the Medicaid documentation end of things. And in the state of Illinois, we have kind of a peculiar situation with the medical cards for dependents. And I'm wondering, Rebecca, if you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, my English is not too good, but I'm gonna try to explain. One of the things that when we are using the benefits, medical card or SNAP, sometimes they, when we did the application, ACP, when we put the documents from the who's under the application, we use the name on the matricula consular is the most of the people that have. When we write that, our information is the full name. But when we are using the documents, the name is just the name and the last name. So sometimes they reject that because they wanted that the name match with the other name that is in the benefits. So this is one of the things that they are rejecting the documents. Also, when they are qualified for ACP, when we went through the Xfinity or other service, the name is the same. The name is just one name and last name, and they reject again the application. They say we can't. The name doesn't match. Maybe it's a point, just a comma, but they are rejecting any application.
Yeah, so thank you, Rebecca. What happens is what you think would be a one-step process on the ACP side of things. Once you get through the eligibility, then you've got to negotiate the ISP platform to be able to process your benefit. So, and I see in here from Caroline, and I would love to be able to, provide any information and share information. I'm kind of jumping around here and I apologize. One of the other things that, and Rebecca talks about it, is the number of documents that are required for the application process. And we talk about language barriers, English versus Spanish versus Polish, whatever the native language may be, but there's a bigger problem, and that is defining these documents. Many of our residents, if we say to them, I need you to bring your latest Comcast bill, and I need to make sure it has A, B, C, and D on it. They may not have the document because they've done everything online and they don't have a printer at home and they don't remember their username or password for the Comcast account. You may ask them for the acceptance letter for the medical card that your child gets through the state of Illinois, they don't have the letter. They don't know what you're talking about. Without examples, it's really hard for them to find that information. When you talk about 200% of poverty line and what your income is, many of our residents, of course, they file their taxes, but they don't know what the AGI line is. So much of this is not something that you can do over the phone. I loved Katie's line, ear to the sidewalk. What we found, and that's why Elizabeth's presence is so important, and that's why Rebecca's been so successful, is you literally have to stay in touch in person through every step of the process in order to make sure that things don't get stuck, because they get stuck a lot. The USAC helpline, those guys really do try their very best to help. But I can only imagine what it's been like to bring that many people up to speed. It's easily 40% of the time I call and I explain our situation and they say, well, you need a social security number. No, you don't need a social security number. I refer them back. They haven't had the experience to be able to really understand all the ins and outs of the application process. The one other thing I'd love everybody here to think about, and I'm I'm jumping around. One of the things that we've had happen in Waukegan, and I'm not sure if it's happened in other communities, is many of these ISPs who are approved providers by the state of Illinois, and there are in excess of 80 of them, a few of them offer, they claim, free devices. Without explaining to the resident, the potential customer, how they're getting this free device, residents are providing information in order to get a free or a $10 tablet. And I haven't met anybody who's handed over the $10 yet. They get it free. I have a sneaking suspicion the agent's coughing up the 10. And they have no idea that they just signed away a $100 device benefit and $30 a month to a company that's giving them 12, gigs at 3G, 4G speeds for their $30 a month. And instead they're still paying, whatever their wireline services in their home. So this concept that the device offerings make this more enticing, I think in the state of Illinois, and I don't know, Robbie, if you could correct me, if you guys have looked at this, there's no one that offers you a laptop or a Chromebook. The CNET has got 10 great tablets for $100 or less, but I know of one group that offers the tablets for $10. So these devices become, in my opinion, an artificial enticement to sign up for a less than plan. And we really have to figure out how we solve that device enticement, that device issue. And, I can see, yeah.
Yeah, so I was in Washington, D.C. last week, and there were people out on the street with tables of these crappy tablets. Yep. A big sign that says free,
Yes.
And that's hard to, people, oh, this looks great or whatever, and why not, right? Everyone says, well, it's like a free hat or something, why not? And but compared to the marketing you have to do, the level of sophistication of the decision making is a lot different than free right now. Here it is.
Exactly. And what happens with those services, Bill, and this is why, because we were racking our brains, like, how do they get to do this so fast? Well, here's the thing. What we learned when we signed up the young woman who had no internet service, but her documentation was really light without social security numbers. But here was the thing. If I'm signing up for new service, and in this instance, that's what happens. They get the free tablet And now they're signing up for a brand new service. So whatever information got put in the front end of the ACP portal, they then can make sure matches exactly in the service provider's portal. So it's instantaneous. That's how they get what they get so quickly. There is a, yeah. And so, again, you're trying to figure out these angles. Comcast, and Bill, I know you have been, on our task force meetings. Comcast also offers a Dell laptop or desktop for $149.99. But that requires a resident, A, to know the service is available, B, to have $149.99 readily available to pay for the device. In our community, neither one of those things are guaranteed for even 20% of our residents. I mean, I don't know that I'd know that I could get a free device, because when you're on those websites, you're never quite sure which way you're entering an Xfinity system, So that device proposition is a really big problem. And it's something that we need to figure out how we solve. And wouldn't it be interesting if you could actually have nonprofits, PCs for People and CompuDoc can provide the refurbished ones? You wonder if they couldn't carve out something with the regulations and allow registered, certified nonprofits to be able to provide devices to individuals and then gain the $100 credit, just literally as a way to put devices out on the streets that work and that provide the service that ACP was intended for. So, and it's interesting.
Do you have any kind of materials? Do you have a kit or something?
So I'll tell you, and now with Rebecca has been unbelievable. We actually have sort of a script in English and in Spanish that we've worked through. It's, it needs to be tweaked, but we'll absolutely provide it to everybody. With Elizabeth now on board, we'll be able to continue to do more of that. We've got, so we've got the script. We actually have every screenshot of the application process. We've done screenshots so that you know what it is you're looking at and what it is you're going to have to upload there, because that's half the battle. I mean, you need a tax return, you need a matricula consular. As Rebecca pointed out, you need to make sure if your name is Rebecca Consuelo Pedraza Castro, you can leave out the middle name, but you need Pedraza Castro, or they're going to kick you completely out. Even though your bill on Comcast says Rebecca Pedraza, you'll have to fix that on the other end. So, we've got those kinds of tips. So we can provide all of that. And maybe there's a way that we can set up some weekly or every other week meetings where we can kind of share what we've all learned.
Well, that's a great idea. Some
Yeah,
kind of a Digital Navigators network, or, whether they're,
Absolutely. Because now that and again, for those of you on the call, I mean, Thomas is a co-chair of our task force, so he's well aware. We've done everything with private money. So we've been incredibly lucky. So private money and volunteers, I mean, Rebecca, I hate to even tell you how many times I'm sending to her in the middle of the night or way early morning, Rebecca, can you translate this? She's been on the phone. She's been to people's houses. People have been to her home, because that's truly what it takes to get through the process, because it's just foreign territory. I would strongly recommend anybody who's thinking about doing this business, you need a personal presence. A call center and a telephone is not going to get you where you want your residents to be, which is trusting that a process works, trusting that somebody is going to take care of them and give them a choice, and be there when things don't work.
What percentage of the people you work with need that intensive assistance, do you think?
Rebecca, I'll defer to you. How many people need you working with them face to face?
Rebecca, you're muted.
You're muted. There you go.
Sorry. Yeah, we need many people because the process is hard because if they don't match one thing, they said, okay, again, you have to start it again, the process. And sometimes the people that trust in us, they send all the information, but not all the people wants to share all the information.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would say, you know, it's really interesting. You need to think about this whole process from their perspective. Our residents sit down with us, and for $30 a month, they gotta find their, you know, they're giving you their ID. They are potentially sharing with you their tax information, which could be highly sensitive. They are giving you billing records. They are giving you the last four of their child's social security number. And all they ever know is the scam that happened last week down the street. So if you aren't willing to invest your time to help build some trust, you're going to get some people who are going to enroll, but you're not going to get people who are willing to say, hey, thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks, Rebecca. I'm going to go tell my friend, and I'm going to have my friend contact you, and that family's going to get enrolled. And that's the point. That's what you have to do, because that's the only way we're going to get everybody signed up. The scammers are going to get everybody signed up, you know, for a $30 benefit that they're going to put in their pocket, and, you know, a tablet that, and Bill, I'm glad you said they were lousy, because I couldn't imagine that, you know, what's the battery life in these things? And then everybody, once again, what do they think about the government? Well, they gave me a lousy tablet and the service stinks. Where's trust?
Yeah. Robbie, nationally, what's the buzz on ACP and some of these issues?
So there's a working meeting tomorrow that I'll be attending. So I don't have the you know, information right now, but I can kind of report back to people what people say. I think there's, at least as far as the NDIA listserv, there's just kind of a lot of confusion. It sounds like also navigating Lifeline in conjunction with the ACP. So I very much appreciate, Ann, what you were talking about, you know, because not many people talk about the device aspect of this whole thing, and it does seem to kind of be an underreported, pretty confusing element. And I was just looking, I can share it in the chat, of the Illinois providers that have agreed to the ACP, and not too many offer the devices to begin with. So,
and I bet you, Robbie, if you looked at the ones that are offering the devices, I bet you that over 50% of them are the ones that have agents, independent contractors that go out and sell their service. So, I mean, I'm going to call it out here because, you know, what do I have to lose? I'm a volunteer. True Connect, their entire board of directors is private equity. They made their money on Lifeline. They call themselves a virtual internet provider because they lease T-Mobile's 3G and 4G spectrum. Hopefully, Bill, I'm saying this correctly. So they're out there telling you, you got 12 gigs of data on a tablet. And if I remember my research correctly, the speed you can get on 3G or 4G, probably not enough to stream much more than like a 430p YouTube video. You know?
Generally, certainly the 3G is that way for sure. And then depending on where you are with 4G, you know, and is a big question.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for this information, and we'll update the communities, and you and I and Robbie, we can kind of figure out what's the best way to package up all your learning and materials and whatever you're willing to share.
We'll
And this
share it all.
idea of this navigators network or something, I think has a lot of validity, whether it's across the ICCs or, you know, various NDIA Illinois members, or, you know, see, you know, what the opportunities are there. Let's
Yeah.
think about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was going to say, Anne, I'm going to raise your concerns at this working group meeting, the things around the full name, the kind of difficulties around social security numbers, all that sort of stuff, and then the devices as well as Lifeline. So I'll be reporting back as well, kind of
That'd be great.
hopefully to answer that. Yeah.
Because you know, what's interesting, on the last part of the ACP application, you have to put a representative number. And I am very curious if those representative numbers are filled out by these third-party agents. Because then you could actually track who's doing it. But, you know, interesting. So thank you very much,
Yep.
everybody.
I think that was really great, and look forward to doing more to multiply the impact of your great work.
Well, thanks. It's a group effort. We've got a great task force in Waukegan and lots of resources if, you know, we'll all swap.
Yeah. And do you want to just take a minute and kind of talk about your task force and the report? Our community hasn't, you know, our group hasn't really heard that much about that, and it's fine, almost final now. So
Yeah, again, we were very fortunate. We started in March of 2020 with a small group. There were 3 of us, found private money for a community assessment to evaluate the internet landscape in the city of Waukegan. After that, we brought it to the city of Waukegan, the mayor, Thomas, as his chief of staff. They agreed this was an important issue for the city, and a task force was born there about September of 2020. We began meeting in December on a weekly basis. We have representatives from, you know, a huge cohort from the city of Waukegan, Lake County Health Department, private funder representative, 2 individuals who have professional experience in consulting and all things Wi-Fi techie. We have representatives from the Boys and Girls Club, from the United Way, Waukegan Public Library, as well as a few other nonprofits, and then a couple of us who just need something else to do. And so we've been meeting. We put out an RFP in June of 21. We hired CTC Communication and Technologies, a national consulting firm. That engagement was started in September of 21, and we're in the last bit of the finalization of the broadband master plan for the city of Waukegan. Unlike Katie's situation where you need to get additional providers in, that isn't so much our problem, but in terms of affordable, reliable access to both broadband and to the devices that would be needed to access it. That's really where the heart of our work is going to reside. And then hopefully we'll get everybody, I love those 15-minute phone sessions, get the technology training out in a way. If you kind of think, one of our thoughts is the way you do it in Apple Genius Bar, don't tell me, show me, and then move on. So we've got a lot of big plans, but that's what the activity has been thus far.
thank you for that.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. North Chicago's on the line. I know. What's going on in North Chicago? Hi, Dave. Oh, maybe he bumped off. Carolyn or Griselda? What's happening in Latinx DLN?
Hi, everybody. Gosh, it's been so, listening to all these presentations have been, reports from your communities have been pretty, what's the word, enlightening in many ways, definitely challenging. And it feels, I guess, good in a way that we're not alone in this, because as we're building our team, and although we can say we've made a lot of advancements, the more we do, the more challenges we run into, and the more heavy lifting we realize we have to do to truly accomplish the goal. And it's not a short-term thing, it's an ongoing thing. So I guess what I can report is, and I break it up into 3 areas of impact in how we live and how we work and how we learn using the digital resources. In how we live, like the last few couple of presentations, we have been focusing on the affordability and the access of the internet. And in the last few months, we've been in building a team that I think many underestimate until they get into it, of what it takes to really get to the affordable and reliable internet to the underrepresented groups. So with Summit, Illinois, and I'm happy the mayor is here with us, we've really been building a team for ongoing collaboration that engages the leadership. And Bill, you know, the leaders have really stepped up from the district, school districts, the superintendents of the elementary school district, 5 schools, and the high school, District 217, the library, and we're in other churches. And we've taken on the ACP as the focus. And like it was said before, you know, this Illinois Connected Communities was a launching a catalyst, but the need is much greater, much farther in terms of people resources, in terms of funding. So we were fortunate that when we started a year ago, and we were exposed to other partners like Heartland Forward, and my other hat that I wear with LULAC, I was able to bring that resource or that partnership to LULAC National. And as a result, 2 months ago, we were part of a grant for 4 states, Illinois being one of them, and several local councils across the state, to really bring teams of volunteers. And we brought our team in Summit to get the ACP enrollment. And it's an easy thing to say, but it's very heavy lifting, very challenging. And we're building a team that started with 2 people, now we're up to 7 people, and dividing up who's going to do the coordination, who's going to be connecting to the community leaders, in this case, the church. We're working with the Safe Place Church, making announcements, being very deliberate and prepping the individuals that are going to listen to the message and then have to come prepared for the enrollment. Then we're enrolling, we're engaged student volunteers from the high school, and they will be receiving stipends. They will be getting a training toolkit on, all the things that could go wrong, or the things that are going to get all the hiccups. It's not a matter of announce, show up, enroll, and you're done. I mean, there's really, we identified, I believe, 5 points, 5 different steps, of which any of those we have to really have a kit, we established a training kit for those involved in those 5 different steps. So the things that I was hearing from Waukegan, I would love to engage in conversations with the team, because those things that about uploading and what device to use, and in the names not matching, all those things that are going to be very frustrating for the volunteers that we engage, as well as for the benefit, the ones that are expecting the benefit, and they're not fully prepped. So it looks like the heavy lifting is in being personal and trusting is so important. So what I'm here to share is I really, commend Waukegan and the others for sticking with it as we are. But I do believe that there's a need, something good that can come out of this, is to not reinvent the wheel and keep having these meetings. We can't cover everything, but I think this thing about the affordability and the enrollment and the process and reaching those underrepresented groups, where the language is an issue, where the social security is an issue, where the lack of device is an issue. This is really a call to, make a permanent solution for the digital navigators that we're talking about. This cohort is going to end in a couple months, but we're just at the beginning of discovering all these things that require a permanent team, a permanent resource those boots in the ground, those trusted individuals, as well as those resources virtually from volunteers. So we're at the stages right now of setting up these events in April and in May when the weather's getting nicer. We're in conversations with PCs for People to include those devices. I learned about, hearing about those scam or those vendors that all they want is the money and they are really not providing the right device or the right internet connectivity. That's why we lose that credibility with the government. And that's why people like yourselves and like our team, we have to be there and be representing the rights and the interests of our community, because there's too many others that are just looking for the money. So we are just at the beginning of, and all those collective thoughts and experiences and toolkits, we are building our own. We would love to share it for those of you who can benefit. We'd like to get your toolkits, your example of documents. I know we've been asking examples of documents because when we ask someone for a document, they don't know what we're talking about. They've never seen it. So we can build those drives with, examples of documents, names that should match. This is an example. And then doing training and spreading the word. It's going to take quite some time. I see it an ongoing, very missionary work to do this. So my report on the ACP is our approach for affordability and using in a way to better live, a better way to live in this digital world. We're just at the beginning stages, and I hope that we come together collectively to become a digital navigator ongoing and getting more funding. We received the 15,000 grant, but the work has been incredibly growing with many volunteers, Latino professionals that I specifically target to recruit. We have people from corporate, from telecoms that are doing this as a volunteer. We have students. We have our other members in our group that are doing the same. We've been able to reach, as a result, a total of $250,000 of grant for Illinois, $250,000 in grants. To our nonprofit, we were able to secure about 40,000 of that. That is to augment all the resources and the outreach, in the training, in the materials, and all the things that are needed. It's really a full scope of projects that are just getting started, and it just the only thing that I see is I hope doesn't happen is that it ends, that we're just at the beginning. I would like for our cohort to continue. So on the how we live, we are just
Carolyn?
getting, yes.
Yeah, let's do a little more round robin, then we'll come back if we have time. Okay?
Sounds real good. I just want to add on the work. We are in the final stages of intro to cybersecurity. We are so the broadband, everybody talked about it, and I'm just commending everyone and hope we work together. But on the how do we use this for a better life, for work, we are completing 50 participants that enrolled. Right now, about 7 completed intro to cybersecurity. That includes students, it includes adults who have never been exposed to what does cybersecurity mean to me in my life and my work. And we have some of those that are completing and saying, I want to pursue this tech field as a career. So that's another different and separate aspect of broadband equity. And then the third one is on the Learn. We are in an initiative to engage teachers that serve English learners. Too often they get left out. How do they get the computer science coding experiences in the classroom? So to start building this pipeline for the students to be exposed to this, whether they learn English or not at the same time. So we did recruit about 250 teachers across the state, some are from Summit. And what we're bringing is strategies and classroom practices for teachers to bring this into the classroom, and for administrators to bring in more funding appropriately so that the computer science legislation that just passed truly begins that pipeline long-term. So those are the 3 areas of how do we live, how do we work, and how we learn. And I just want to share this and hope to continue this dialogue. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Let's go to Diane in Carrollton. Diane, what's new in Carrollton?
There we go. We are in the process. We've got our survey going strong. We're a little over 8%. I haven't looked at it today. I just saw an email from Jennifer. We're trying to reach 10% on our survey. We'd like to get more of the no service dots on our map. And then toward like in another couple weeks, we're going to start meeting with providers. We've had some of them reach out to us and want to meet and talk. So we're going to start talking to them.
Can you talk a little bit about your work with GeoPartners and that speed test mapping that you're doing? Go ahead, Jennifer.
Oh,
Sure.
There. Go
Diane,
ahead, Jennifer.
okay, sure, certainly. So the GeoPartners mapping that we're doing, and Diane shared that we're trying to get up to 10% of households surveyed, and she was correct. We're actually merging up towards 9% right now, and it's only taken us probably since the end of March to do that. The map is really useful, especially in the campaigning part, to get households surveyed, because we can actually dissect the map in a variety of different ways. One that might be useful for others that might go down this road would be the separation by school districts within your community. And so the schools have been really supportive of our efforts. And I think we've heard from other groups around the country that have utilized school districts in kind of gaming, how can we, get as many households covered in the speed test area. And they've done a really good job for us. We certainly need to continue the work on the no service part on the map, but it's really great. We can view the map from congressional districts. We can view the map from school districts. We can go down and target the map by townships, which has been really helpful as well, because the townships will kind of show a little bit more of the smaller towns and it tells us how many households are in that area and what our target is. So it's really helpful on a weekly basis to keep our task force up to date on where we're at. And then we're simultaneously on about a weekly basis putting out a social media campaign to let residents know what we're doing and how we're updating it. The only thing I'd say on the social media campaign, some people thought it was more of a generated ad, because they were thinking it was, so that really getting the message out on that and continuing to tell the public of liking and commenting and sharing has been really helpful, so that friends and families can share. So. Bill, I don't know if you want me to tell you what it's looking like based on the numbers or not, but I have that as well.
Oh, sure.
Well, so what we're seeing from the map that we've done of the, getting close to 10%, we are seeing on download speeds between 0 and 10, 43% of those surveyed fell in that range. 10 to 25 were 22%. So, I mean, that's what 65 or more percent at those speeds. Uploads were showing less than 3 at 40% of those surveyed. And then we're seeing also between 3 and 10, 27%, 10 to 25, 21% or 23%. So greater than 25 on upload speed was only 6%. So it's really helping us to understand the data.
Good. Thanks so much for that report. That's really interesting.
Could you repeat that last thing, Jennifer? Greater than 25 megabits per second upload was under 6%?
Was 6%, yeah. So.
Thank you.
Yep. And we've had nearly, we're getting close to, over, let's see here, over 908 speed tests were done, which is really good for us. But, people have been doing them from various devices because we've been encouraging them to, utilize cellular and hardwired, and their wireless. So we're going to get good data. And we're also surveying them for the price point that they're paying for service. So we'll have some of that data. And then we're simultaneously doing a SurveyMonkey survey for additional data. And that's been widely utilized as well. So we're going to have some good data from that. And one of the things that did come from that I will share with your group is that we asked, is there anybody out there who is interested in joining our broadband team or work? Please provide your information. I had well over, I know Diane took this and went with it, well over 100 and some people out of that who said, yes, we'll help you. And so we've just been, I know Diane reached back to them and said, here's where we're at. Can you help us? And so more of that person-to-person contact by friends and neighbors And so that's been utilized as well.
That's really exciting.
That's
Thank you.
fantastic. Yeah.
Good, good. Gracie, do you want to tell us about Tazewell?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Over the month of March, our team kind of split up and went to every city council meeting and talked about the survey that we launched. So that was really good to kind of get that face-to-face contact. And what we've realized is that the survey not only gave us good data, but has really increased the broadband conversation in Tazewell. There's a lot of people talking about it, just like through the radio shows we did in the city council meetings and just like neighbor to neighbor. We've almost reached our goal of like 1,000 responses, 900 to 1,000, which we were pretty happy about. And I have to say thank you to Bill for having us include the broadband story piece, because I have been going through and like helping code those, and they're just so fascinating to read. Somebody just put like, please help us. And I was just like, so that the call is there and people said, thank you for doing this. Call me if you need any more information. There's just a lot of good information in those stories. So that's been really good to kind of take in, and we are excited to relay those out soon as we're collecting more information. We're lucky enough that one of our team members is now on the county board. And so he's kind of spearheading a broadband committee team on that aspect. So we kind of have a say in just like that information and that communication between the county board and like what we're doing. We're continuously talking to internet service providers. We met with T-Mobile last week, next link the week before, Stratus, I think the week before as well. So we're just kind of gaining all these perspectives and seeing where we can benefit the most from the internet service providers in the area. We obviously want to try to support local internet service providers as much as we can to kind of increase that economic development in our area. Our next step is obviously collecting the survey data and like kind of sharing it with the community. We've decided that instead of doing like one large broadband summit, we think it might be hard to get all the community to come to one place in the county, that we try to go to them and try to go to these like maybe smaller libraries. We can talk to specific towns and get more of that participation from individuals, and maybe bring internet service providers to them as well. We figured that'd be a really good engagement piece. So that's kind of what we're planning right now. And then we're lucky enough that a city in Tazewell has an ongoing PCs for People collection or partnership. So that's just like good. They have computers on hand already. So trying to get that word continuously out. And we really want to try to help PCs for People back with all the work they've done to help us. So we're working on getting a countywide collection in Tazewell, as well as kind of like a next step with that partnership. So there's a lot going on. We feel movements going forward. We're excited. But yeah, that's been kind of our past month.
That's great. Great work, Gracie.
Thank you.
I know that was took a while to get some momentum. So you and Kathy have kind of lifted that up and pulled it forward. And well, I think once you do get the momentum, you hear those stories. I think those are powerful. When you ask people, will you help? A lot of people will help. So, but you have to get it out there, and it's hard to get the buzz. So good job.
It's been good. And Kathy's been great. Thank you, Bill.
Good. And then community builders, I see Pat on the call, and then also James is on the call. What's going on in community builders? Anyone willing to share?
So, hi, Bill, this is Pat. I missed their last meeting, so I can't provide any updates. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. And generally, this is a group for people who don't know, a housing developer and manager that is building a coalition to try and improve broadband services and adoption and use within major housing development in Chicago, Oakwood Shores. I think about 1,500 housing units, and has some exciting ways to work on that. And I know the team leader is out, Rose is out on leave this week. So, but they're making progress. I know that. So good. Did I miss anyone? Good. Well, I want to thank people for joining today. And then I just want to take a few minutes to warn you about what's coming up now in May and June. The goal of this program is to kind of get your team organized and gather data and information about your community and start to build those strategies for access, adoption, and/or use but we don't want you to think of the end of the program in June where the Benton assistant ends as the end for your group, but as a path forward. And so our goal is to really help you develop the plan for the next, 6 to 9 months to a year of the kind of activities that your team would like to undertake going forward. And so having a clear understanding of kind of the options for moving forward on your priorities, what are the strategies, and actually put together a bit of a timeline and program so your team feels comfortable with the idea of, okay, what's next? And maybe help identify some resources that can help you move forward. I think for communities that have significant Hispanic populations, I think building a coalition with the Latinx DLN group is really an important opportunity for communities, because they have a strong vision about what it is they'd like to do, and have been able to access resources that they've been making available, statewide around this youth technology training or the cybersecurity piece and so on. So think about that as well. And so as we get closer, we have our April meetings ongoing right now, but then right away that May and June meetings, I will lead your team through that, and we'll by the end of those 2 meetings have kind of a PowerPoint presentation of a plan of, okay, what are our next steps, who's going to do what by when. And so it's really meant to be a solid action plan for your community that says, okay, it's Jennifer will do this and Gracie will do that, and or organizations, not just kind of pie in the sky goals, but real activities that people and organizations are committed to. And so I encourage you, as you look around to your meeting room and say, hey, do we have all the right people we need going forward? And to think about who else should be at the table. Those folks, like Jennifer said, that are willing to help on different programs and projects, and hopefully we're attracting people as opposed to losing people with these efforts. But now is a great time to take one kind of look around and say, as we get into this home stretch, who else should be involved, and how can we bring them to the table to bring their expertise and resource and energy. So that's kind of where we are on this process, and it's fun to hear the great reports about what's going on in the communities, and everyone's got their niche of what's important in their community, and it's fun to hear those reports of progress. Anyone have anything else to say or add?
Bill, I was just going to add one of the latest requests that I was given, and I haven't had time to research it yet because I'm working in Greene County on this particular project. I'm sharing that with neighboring communities. And so I was approached by a business owner who's getting ready to open a restaurant in an area that traditionally doesn't have very great cellular coverage. They're using, in order to, deal with the large crowds that'll probably be there this summer, using QR codes with your cell phone. And so their internet is a huge issue. And so they're kind of asking me at this point, what are those steps we need to take now in interfacing with local government, with providers, et cetera. So I'm kind of on the hunt at this point for documentation and what to share with them. And especially without the fact that they haven't done that, speed test themselves in that particular area. So that's one of the requests I'll put out there just to our cohort. If anybody has, that process that a new business owner should really check out, so that they don't, kick off their new soft opening or hard opening with limited capacity. So that's what we're looking at this time.
Well, that's really interesting that as you think about cellular service, if you look at the state broadband maps, they can be quite, I don't know what color it is, but it seems like the color, whatever they color they use for service is, oh, it's everywhere. But here we're talking about a restaurant owner probably in a town that
on the river.
work.
Yep, on the river. So, we're thinking, boaters out in the water will be, trying to call in orders and those kinds of things. And just, having, does their system hold up to the scrutiny of, number of users and what's the capacity there? And so that it works functional, what are some things they can do on the front end? So just being a part of this has been helpful enough to know about where fiber lines are being, moving in the area. And, I touched base briefly this morning with City Hall, and they knew that, ground was being broken on a fiber line coming through. So kind of making sure that those partnerships happen is going to be really important.
Okay, good. Well, that's a great, I think that we're seeing how important, a restaurant needing great internet. You think, well, how are those two things related? You think about, a manufacturer or somebody like that needing internet, but there's very few businesses now that don't require that. And if your community doesn't have it, that's one more voice that says this is critically important when it comes to convincing city councils or county boards or state legislators to prioritize this as a real community development issue. Good, thanks for that comment.
I know Anne said she would share her ACP resources, but I'd be really interested in just having the screenshots of all the steps and stuff. I found that super interesting. I would love to have that. And so I just wanted to put that out there again.
Good, well, we'll work with them to gather that and be able to transmit it to folks. So they're definitely, I think that I'm going to call, Waukegan's got a new nickname. It's called the Thorough City, because they're very thorough. They're in Waukegan on their digital equity issues. So I really appreciate them joining today and sharing that. Maybe we'll put Robbie in charge of pursuing that. And
yeah, no, I think that's great, because we did a larger ACP thing in the Illinois newsletter, and we plan on kind of updating that with resources and stuff. So we'll do that. And then I think for more specifically for the Illinois Connected Communities, we'll get that stuff out there. Yeah. And by the way, I just got an email from NDIA, and they're looking for success stories with photos and everything. So if anyone is, I'm going to send it to Anne, but if anyone is interested and has a positive enrollment story, you might be able to get some traction with that. So just, I'll put my email in there for people.
Thanks, Robbie. And thanks again to Illinois Extension for hosting. Nancy, everything always works great. So thank you for that. And thanks to all of you on your teams for your work. We really appreciate, the time and energy that our teams are putting in, and it's getting pretty exciting with the results that are starting to pop up on surveys and meetings with providers and so on. So really do appreciate that work, and encourage you to recognize how far your teams have come now in the last several months, and get ready to plot a bright future and active community plan. So thanks, everyone. Have a great day.